All right, everybody, we are live for another episode of the Key to Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I am Josh Blazer, and we have another great conversation lined up for this Saturday evening. Joining me, my co-host from Casual Game Studio, Joshua Reyes. How are you feeling this week? I know it's been a very long week for you.
It has been a long week. It's been I think now I've actually counted. It's like 22 days that I've had this. I'm trying zinc. I have zinc right here, Excedrin, and then Mucinex. So I'm trying all these, and none of them are really working. I'm deving on I have my monitors, and I got a little air up mattress now, and I'm like deving on the floor in between my fever dreams. So it's going great. And then also I'm preparing for a game dev conference, a game dev guild 2023 on May 1st. I will be giving 2 speeches on source control and why you should use it in game dev, and then also on AI, one of my favorite ones. So that's going to be pretty good. Other than that, Josh, how you been hanging in there? Not writing a book right now. What are you
in that rare period right now? I'm trying to get
right
catch up on everything else that I need to do with videos and writing articles and so on. But yeah, it's like that kind of like I'm not as busy, but I'm still busy. Time.
Yes. Always.
Last time I checked, we are just about 50 subscribers away from 10,000. So
wow, I didn't know we were that close. That's how long I've been knocked out sick.
And we need to get a roundtable schedule. Everyone's been moving around or sick or both, it seems.
That's right. Yeah, I'm hoping we get one this week. It'll be great. I'm really hoping for MMOs. So get a nice MMO roundtable.
But thank you everybody in chat for stopping by. For this week, we are kind of in part 2 of an unknown number at this time of discussions about the shooter genre. Last week, we kind of focused on the 90s with kind of the quote-unquote boomer shooter era, with the likes of Doom, Quake, and even starting to talk a little bit about the original Half-Life and Halo.
Yes.
But for this week, we are squarely in the 2000s, and we're going to kind of move on to talk about when the shooter genre began to really differentiate itself in terms of designs, and I guess what I'm calling the quote-unquote like spectacle shooter era. So
yes,
to kind of define what we're discussing, these aren't be games that either A, they don't play in the same kind of, I guess, standard as the previous first-person shooter. So we're kind of moving away from, here's just a flat map. You beat that, you move on to the next map. And then the other thing, this is when we got to really experimental in terms of weapon and combat design, where it's not just about taking the biggest gun. This is when we got to the era of stuff like the gravity gun, the painkiller, and of course, the craziness of adding in gun fu and martial arts when we got to f.e.a.r.
Right. And don't forget also like physics. There was a lot of physics destruction and some really neat stuff that was introduced at that time. Also, so really cool stuff in the shooters in that genre there.
And it is a point where we got to that the genre itself really began to, again, expand beyond just being about shooting. And when we were talking about last week, and I'm just going to make sure that the stream is live, so you're going to see the screen cut out there as I'm talking for sure. But as we're getting into this era, we're moving away from, or it felt kind of like last we talked about the multiplayer side. We talked about very much like the hit scan, or like there was no real sense of, the bullet hits a character, they get stunned. It's more bullet hits them, they're still running 100 miles a minute here. This is when we got to this point where it kind of felt like the single player side became more divorced from the multiplayer side. I was wondering if you feel that.
Yeah, definitely. This was definitely the era where you could definitely see like the development was almost seemed split up between like there was almost 2 divergent games. You had the multiplayer version of a game and a single player version of the game. And I remember this was almost getting to the time where some people were like, don't even do the multiplayer if you can't do the single player, right? I think you would agree at this time also, right, Josh?
Yeah, like this definitely seemed like more single player focused.
Yeah,
Like
definitely still
despite
single player.
yeah, like despite of course the successes of stuff like Halo, Gears of War, Call of Duty. I know we'll talk about like Battlefield later on in our discussion. This still seemed very much like this period where single player games were becoming more and more prevalent when it came to shooters, and more specifically, more or trying to break out from the likes of Doom, Quake, Serious Sam, and so on.
I think also like people were aging, right? And the games you were mentioning, like Quake and Serious Sam, they were very quick, very fast, right? And then or like Unreal Tournament 99, like the speed of that was like amazing. Is that me or you on the mic? Is it where you hear a noise? I didn't know if you were hearing.
No, I'm good.
No.
I was just like adjusting
Okay.
my microphone.
Yeah, and I think that the speed. So of course we were talking about they were trying to mature and like kind of slow down, and so trying to find how to balance the physics, right, from going to literally like thousands of miles an hour in Quake to actually more grounding it, like we were talking about. Now definitely there was that birthing period that we were feeling, right, and they weren't really sure how to manage that because of course also like during the Quake time and the Doom time, the multiplayer established itself as like an integral part to shooters, right? And I'm not sure if you would agree that it was at that time considered a standard to have like multiplayer with your shooter, right? Or
Mm,
or if it was more like a just a welcome addition. I don't think it was yet at that time yet. Where
I think we were getting close. I think by the
yeah,
end of the
end of the
2010s,
2010s for sure.
definitely like early 2000s, it was still I think kind of considered like that nice to have, but maybe we'll support it, maybe we won't,
Right.
that kind of thing. And I think part of that when we get to Team Fortress, and that is something going to come up at some point in our conversation today. Like Team Fortress, I think really like blew open the doors in terms of live service and in terms of a
Definitely.
multiplayer based game. Because again,
Definitely.
like the 90s into most of the 2000s was still this era where a video game was considered done. It's
Yeah.
out, it's at 1.0, it's free, we never look at it ever again, maybe release a few patches, maybe like one expansion, but, kick it out the door, we move on to the next.
If only they knew in the future games are never to be finished ever again. If only they
Mm-hmm.
knew.
And if you remember, of course, the early 2000s is the era before Steam.
That's
In
right.
2004, I believe, is when Steam first appeared, and it had no impact whatsoever on how we play
None.
video games
None.
forever and ever.
Even to this day, it's really hard to quantify like if it has even made any type of impact at all. They
Mm.
still keep chugging along though, Josh. I
Yeah,
mean, I
they're
give them
still
that.
they're still putting in the effort. And I'm trying to think like what would be like the I guess if we're talking about early 2000s, like what do you think would be like the first person shooter in this respect that we should focus
And I
on?
mean, like the one that really broke. I mean, because Halo was like 2001, right?
One,
Um,
two, like Xbox, original Xbox, so that would have been like 2000, 2001 era.
One, right. And so of course, like it's gonna to me, it's gonna be like either between like Halo or Half-Life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm gonna be thinking about. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I think like right around there because I know Fear came later. I think that was like 2005,
See,
2006.
Fear. Should have had that on my list. Thought I had that on my list.
Yeah, if I pull up Google now, I lose the window because of this whole weird thing
Okay,
that's going on.
let me find out when Fear came out.
Yeah, so I know Fear it had to have come out later, and of course, a Monolith they made a lot of very interesting shooters. Everyone remembers, or everyone has probably heard of No One Lives Forever.
Right. Oh five. Oh five
Oh
is when Fear came
five.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
so Halo we were kind of beginning to talk about that last week. But Halo is still, I think we all kind of agree, like one of the most like influential shooters that were released at that time. Like, this is a game that it supported a lot. It kind of legitimized the Xbox.
Yeah.
It really kind of brought home the point of having console side multiplayer. It not only kind of elevated the multiplayer, so as we're talking about, like, this was a game that it was the full package. It had an entire unique single player campaign with the multiplayer. And it started to really, again, bring home this point that we can do shooters, but also have that kind of spectacle to them.
Right.
And, like, again, like, this is when we began to see more shooters that have cutscenes, that there is actual narration going on beyond just, here's a big horde of bad guys, rip and tear. And again, like, I think at some point on the roundtable, we'll have to kind of talk about kind of like the like Hollywoodization that kind of happened to the game industry in the 2000s with the likes of Grand Theft Auto, and just really trying to push more. I think, as you said earlier, like, trying to make it more grounded, trying to make it more serious. And of course, again, like Halo, as we were talking about last week, this could have been the first one that had limits on how many weapons you could have at one time.
Yeah, and speaking of grounded, I think this is when that famous that movie critic about video games being art. I think this was happening at that time also. If I'm looking at the time machine correct, could have been. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was later. Who knows? Time.
Bro, time has no meaning.
No meaning anymore.
So, like, to like the point, like when we talk about this era of spectacle shooters and like focusing on Halo and then moving on from it, this is when bullets and combat, again, it became, I don't want to say less arcade-like, but it became a little bit more, I guess, like, weighted in terms of how combat works. Like, when we talk about last week with, like, Unreal and Quake 3 Arena, again, these are games where everyone is bouncing around, shooting. There's very little kind of momentum in terms of the actual shooting aspect. In these games, it is about kind of getting a beat on someone. Once you start shooting at them, you know, they get, like, staggered, they're stopping, their shield drops. And there's a lot more of that case where you really do need to be paying attention rather than just being fast for fast's sake. Because if you're running around, moving, jumping, and all that, someone who's just carefully aiming their sniper rifle is just going to do that and pop you immediately.
Right, indeed.
And with Halo, and I guess we can talk a little bit more about Half-Life and then Half-Life 2. Like, Half-Life, again, like, a lot of people, I think this is a time that will come up whenever we do, like, an influential talk about genre. It's so easy to look back at games like the original Halo and Half-Life as they were just simple. Like, you know, they're okay, but, you know, things moved on so much from there. But it's important to remember that nothing else was like the original Halo and Half-Life in the 2000s. And Half-Life to this day is still a game that I would say it kind of holds up if we're talking about like Half-Life 2 in particular.
It does. It actually really does. I've gone back and checked it multiple times just to verify. So can this game really hold up? And it still does. And it does, I mean, excellent. There's a lot of lessons you can take from the designs of that game through level design, through physics, narrative, storytelling. There's so many takeaways. And like you said, they're really like, name me another shooter like that is similar to Half-Life, right? Why is the Half-Life 3 meme exist? Because I mean, you know, and then also you know, Halo 2 was like, we look at it back now and it's like, it's nothing, but when it came, it's like expected everything that it has, but that's because it standardized everything and it like literally created it. And we take for granted that was the first of its kind. As Pony said, it gave people to play a shooter on a controller. Like I had friends that never would have played like shooters ever, and they were there. They're like, "Bro, look, I'm playing this shooter with other people on the and like other people, real people, like freaking out." And so it was definitely like it definitely like opened up the doors. And so that cannot be taken for granted for sure.
Yeah. And to date myself, my first like true multiplayer experience on a console was playing Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast with
Oh
my
yes.
dial-up modem connection.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love it.
And I've said this before, but like I found out Sega canceling the Dreamcast while playing Phantasy Star. Like everyone in the game was just shocked when they heard that news.
Do you remember on the Sega Genesis, they had an add-on that allowed you to play, I think, with AOL, and it would down. Do you remember this?
I
And it would
remember, but I
download the
never
game.
did it.
Yeah, I got it 1 month. It worked. I was able to play like 2 games. It was super expensive. I was so lucky to try it out. But yeah, weird stuff back then. Anyway, let's
Mm-hmm.
stop dating
Yeah.
ourselves.
And yeah, like getting back to Half-Life, I guess here's a question for you then. What do you think of the gunplay in Half-Life, or specifically like Half-Life 2? Like, what do you think like makes it like good, bad, or like how does it hold up?
As far, I think, okay, so I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about this because now that I've played like more advanced shooters like our current rip and tears and stuff like that, and new advancements. When
Mhm.
I go back and I play, I notice more of the technical issues of the game, like the limitations,
Mhm.
and that's just as a game developer, right? So I notice, okay, well, they use a raycast here, and they could have maybe used something different. It still feels okay, and it's definitely holds up. But to me, as a game developer, I noticed a lot of the deficiencies that they had during the development. Josh, how do you feel? Does it hold up for you still? I mean, is it just dated? Like you can't go back.
Mhm. Yeah, like again, we're in this era now, the likes of Dusk, Ultra Kill,
Right.
Doom Eternal. Like
Yeah.
the gunplay itself, I would say is probably like the most dated aspect in terms of
Yeah.
the general
Right.
gameplay. But what Half-Life 2, I think, as we were saying earlier, in terms of what makes it hold up, is definitely the sum of the parts. The first time you go into City 17, the act of I think I was just talking about this with someone else. Oh yeah, the developer I did the interview with yesterday. We were talking about the hovercraft section when you're doing puzzle
Oh
solving.
yes, yes, the hovercraft stuff. Yes.
Like even just having stuff that's not shooting in a
Right.
first-person shooter is a huge deal. And
Right. Like
mainly,
you were saying,
yeah,
like basically what were you doing the most in Doom was collecting a key, right? Like
mm-hmm,
finding an artifact and that was it. And now we're actually like doing physics based, riding a boat,
mm-hmm,
cut scenes, like really breaking the grounds here and like you said, grounding it, really trying to modernizing it. And also again, shooters are really good at I kind of equate them to car games is like as in pushing the technology forward as
mm-hmm,
much as they can and usually trying everything new. Anyway, I'm sorry, Josh, what were you saying?
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just gonna say like, and like with this topic like spectacle shooting, like Half-Life 2 is probably one of the more quintessential examples because
Yeah.
it is a game that you don't really feel like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's more like these collections of moments, entering
Yes.
City 17, being chased by the guards, meeting Alex and the doctor whose name I forget.
Doctors.
Then we go into the sewer. Then we have the entire chase with the squad of enemies chasing after you. We go into the hovercraft section. Like there's a very natural flow to this game that it never really like breaks. And that's something that we saw from a lot of shooters where, you're on this planet. Then we have a 20-minute cutscene and now you're somewhere over there. In Half-Life,
Right.
you're just kind of moving like very logically through this world. You go again, everyone here remembers Ravenholm. And the whole idea of having all of a sudden we're in a horror game for 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
And the game never really like gets stuck anywhere in its design. And that in of itself is a very massive achievement.
Yeah, I mean, wow, you summed it up perfectly. I've actually never thought about how well it does pull it off that way. Um and I really can't think of any previous shooter that wasn't more like arcade based and just
Mhm.
level based and that's actually attempted something with such excellent level design also, right? Like it flows so well. And as I'm looking back out, I've had many playthroughs at it, but as I look back in my head, I really never felt stopped or stuck. Like it always everything progressed like very organically. And again, like you said, pulling that off is a massive achievement. And to this day, to think of another shooter that has pulled that off, it's very rare, right? I mean,
Yep. And again, like as we're talking about this idea of like how the 2000s era really differentiates itself from the 90s, this idea that these places we're going to, they don't feel like a level. They don't feel like they were crafted by a designer wanting to put you through an obstacle course or an arena. It's more, okay, here's a destroyed bridge. Go through this section, and it plays like how you would expect a bridge that's broken and having to make jumps from a broken piece of concrete to broken piece of concrete. That little like mini chapter they put out, the one we were at the Lost Coast, like that had some really interesting design as well.
I remember because I remember Half-Life 2 used it used a real I can't remember which physics engine it used, but it allows some really nice stuff. And later, of course, they were used it for Portal. So
Oh
good tell
yes.
there.
Maybe we'll get to Portal. Oh yeah, Portal we will have to get to. It is in the 2000s. I forgot about the orange box.
That's right, the orange box. I love the orange box so much, man. I wish I still had it. I'm gonna have to get another copy and put it up here. It's probably gonna be ridiculously expensive on eBay.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, and yeah, like to Pony's comment, like the detail, the level of detail about fighting these enemies, about how the world reacts. We all still probably have that, that noise that machine makes when you're healing. That like weird noise it makes as like you're seeing your little health bar fill up. And as we said, we could probably spend an hour on Half-Life 2 alone. Like it's that much of a game. But I guess to kind of wrap up my thoughts on before we move on to kind of our next title, it's such a great example of, I think, doing set pieces right. As we talked about last week, and what we'll probably talk about later on, a lot of shooters, like the Call of Duty era of shooters, when we kind of like this, like the movie or the Hollywood shooters, it feels very forced. Like it feels like the game is being contorted to make you do these set pieces.
Yeah.
In Half-Life, it just felt like kind of part of that flow. That you find the resistance group after you do the bridge, and then all of a sudden they get attacked, and you have that boss battle with the attack chopper that you have to use the heat-seeking rocket launcher on. Or when you go into the desert, and then you get the item that lets you command the antlions when you're in the prison. Like, these are set pieces, but they never feel, again, like forced on you. They just feel like a great break from everything else.
Right. It's like if you were comparing the two, it would be like someone came up with a really nice story and in one room, right, they were crafting this excellent, and in the other room they're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this plane smashed into this building and explosions and that, like, that it's more like they were thinking about, again, like how every single Michael Bay movie and every single thing, and how can we make it as bombastic as possible. And then they kind of threw some narrative in there, and they were like, oh yeah, here's a little bit of narrative, by the way. And when you compared to a game like Half-Life 2, which I mean, oh my gosh, like, yeah, like my final words on that game, definitely go back and play it. I think I'd probably, now I'm going to downgrade the combat even more. Take it like it's Skyrim combat or something. Like, don't really focus too much on it, and instead focus on the set piece and the design. Pony was saying, there's what is he saying about the gravity gun and like birds. So anyway, the environmental storytelling, the way it flows, all of that, it is a masterpiece in design. And there are probably I hate to say this, are probably shouldn't be a 3, because I mean, sometimes things need to not continue to not soil the. I think maybe if they created a third one, like the possibility of living up to it is very high now, right? And I think that if I was a dev working on Half-Life 3, I'd be shaking in my boots. Live what what you'd have to live up to. So I wouldn't keep my hopes up. But yes, definitely study that for sure. Lots to take away from that game.
Mm-hmm. Especially the environmental design, the act of, again, like, guiding the player very organically through it.
Right.
And again, they use a lot of the philosophies. I know when they worked with Turtle Rock for Left 4 Dead, that a lot of those aspects are, we can kind of trace it to that one. Yeah, man, we're getting a Counter-Strike 2 at some point. Yes. Or wouldn't it be considered Counter-Strike 3, though? Because
3, it's 3, it has to be 3.
That's going to confuse a lot of people. But to kind of move ahead from Half-Life, like, if Half-Life was a game that really started this trend on the PC, we would soon see other developers carry forward with trying to do more unique and different things with its shooters. And I think, to the point we were talking about earlier, with, like, kind of like the separation of multiplayer and single player, like, Half-Life 2, it does have multiplayer, but it is arguably more famous for its single-player campaign than the multiplayer aspect of it. And when we got into the mid-2000s, more shooters were, I think, trying to differentiate themselves with interesting single-player campaigns, single-player challenges, stuff that you couldn't do in a competitive shooter.
Indeed.
So, what should we talk about next? We got, of course, f.e.a.r, BioShock, Clive Barker's Undying, Condemned, I should bring up as well in this era.
Yeah. Let's start with BioShock.
So, here's a test for you and for chat.
Oh, boy.
What do you think of BioShock? Because I have some thoughts on it.
I really wanted to hear your thoughts first before I gush about BioShock. But me personally, I don't know if I fit into the hype or what, but when it came out, I was kind of blown away by the marriage of narrative storytelling. The gunplay again was just kind of meh. Again, sometimes, like, I don't know what it was at the time when we were playing games. We like accepted poor like mechanics. We were just like, yeah, the gunplay's lame. Just let's check out what happens next. Anyway, I thought that the first one, and that's probably where they should have stopped, was a great effort at trying to tell a very interesting story. The twist at the end's a little odd, but I think overall, I think it's an excellent game. Okay, Josh, that's a pretty vanilla take on it. I want to hear your take now.
I've grown to hate BioShock. I think it is overrated, one of the most overrated games of the 2000s. It is the hill that I will die on in terms of my game design takes there. And a lot of it, to me, I think, as you were just saying, is that gunplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay just did not work for me.
It's bad. It is like Skyrim, like worse. Like Skyrim had like 10 million. I don't know what I keep bringing up Skyrim, but the battle system, it was a million times better in Skyrim than it was in BioShock and BioShock. It was it was pretty bad. But anyway, go ahead. I want to hear this.
Ponya, make the tweet letting everyone know that someone's bad-mouthing BioShock right now. Let's get the angry mob in.
Yeah. BioShock Infinite. Okay, well, let's get back to the first one. Let's get back to the first one, Josh, your take.
Like, for me, the problem I had with BioShock was that it just felt like it was trying to, I think, like, punch above its weight class in terms of the story and trying to make everything be all important and all that, but it just felt very routine to me. And I've said this before, like, what really killed BioShock for me was playing Clive Barker's Undying around that same time. I felt that game had a much more interesting story. I felt the gameplay was far superior to it. And it just felt like, again, like taking one note and just repeating it for however long that game was. Like,
understand.
The Big Daddy, like, if I'm going to rant, I might as well get all the rants out now. The whole Big Daddy Little Sister thing, just a horrible system. It is one of the most rote morality sliders I think that any game had, because it is a game where if you kill one, thank you, Pony, that if you sacrifice one little sister, you're automatically evil. There's no way to get around it. But if you don't do it, then all your choices mean that you are the patron saint of the world.
Right.
And even then, it turns out that there really wasn't a choice, because you arguably get more resources long-term saving everyone. So it just felt like it was put in to check off a box rather than being like an interesting morality decision. And I would at least give like Knights of the Old Republic props for letting you have two legitimately different ways of playing, between the light side and the dark side, having unique powers for both. Here, it's just like, yeah, you go evil, and the game just feels worse because you're not getting as many resources. So there's no real, greater sense of discussion or morality. Now, the whole twist of that game, the would you kindly?
Yes.
Oh, man, like...
Was that like an arrow to the knee to you, or...
Yeah. I would say so, Pony. I would say Dishonored is a better BioShock. At least from a gameplay perspective.
Definitely. I think that's a good take.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good, Pony. You don't need to go back and play it.
No, you don't.
And I know a lot of people were talking about the kind of like immersive sim aspects. Of course, BioShock sounding very similar to System Shock.
Right.
But where like System Shock and games like it went for like really dense levels, BioShock just didn't do that. It felt very linear to go through. There's no real sense of, I guess, that kind of like aha moments. We were talking about this with the developer, I think Enzo, the other day. We were talking about this idea of giving the player a bunch of cool powers and then letting them make their own fun out of it. BioShock just felt very basic in that respect. Like, the whole like idea of combining your plasmids would work if the controls and such were better. Would work better if it was easier to actually maneuver and manipulate the different attacks.
Right.
And
so regardless of what you acquire, everything feels clunky. The combat feels terribly clunky. The puzzles are kind of a joke, right? Like,
everyone looks pipe dream, right?
I was, and yeah, okay, you're gonna make me hate the game too. You're gonna get me on your side. And you mentioned the level design. It's really good at environmental storytelling, but the level design is horrifyingly bad. As you were saying, you felt like you were, I forgot how, I can't quote you exactly,
very, like,
but
linear,
very linear, right? And there is no like organic progression. It's literally like, it's like they took everything that was good. Yeah, pipe puzzles. It was like they took everything that was good out of a very, very old type of level design from maybe like Doom or something. And try to apply it there, but the level design was so. I mean, talk about corridor nightmares. The game was basically just corridor stack on corridors. I cannot even a game that was so set piecey. I couldn't even tell you how. I couldn't tell you what level I could remember from there, right? And the whole thing is based on environmentals, but. What do I don't remember the design of any of, but I could probably literally draw you out like a Half-Life level, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that is a really good point there. My memory, I can remember again like some of the big story beats of BioShock. I can remember Would You Kindly. I can remember the first time we see a Big Daddy and Little Sister.
Yeah.
But can anyone here remember any of the actual battles, any of the level layouts? And then we go to something like Half-Life. How many people here remember the entire, again, hovercraft section? With you going to the various buildings, and you can see, oh, I can't really forget his name, Agent, G-Man, there we go. You see G-Man, like, in the distance, like, walking into that building. Like, we get that sense of place in Half-Life. In BioShock, it just never felt more than just, here's a bunch of scary places, here's spookiness, and then...
So let's kind of break it down there. Where did, as a game that's touted for so much environmental designing, is it like, where did it fall or fail in the level design, but was still touted for environmental design? They're two separate things, but you would think...
I think it is just a case of kind of the Flash overriding the substance in this regard.
Right.
Again, like, there are some, as you said, there's some fantastic environmental design in this game. Everyone probably... I know one thing people will probably bring up is the whole Sinclair section, when you're in, like, the creepy mannequins, which when we get to Condemn, we'll talk more about creepy mannequins for sure. But, again, like, it's such one of those, and I think this kind of began this stem of the AAA space, where it's more about the overall mood and theme rather than the moment-to-moment gameplay. Whereas when we get into the 2010s, especially with the rise of independent developers, they focus more on the moment-to-moment rather than trying to create this, sense of a theme or thematic element to the entire game.
Indeed.
And with BioShock, I remember I interviewed one of the developers on that, and he even said that they they changed the whole weapon system, like, at, like, the last minute of the 11th hour.
Wow.
Because I think the publishers felt like it was too complicated. That's still, like, I can still feel the knives going into my chest when I say that.
Wow, I did not know that, Josh. That would definitely explain a lot, because if they did it at the 11th hour, like, who knows, like, how it was coded, how it was introduced, how much time it was tested, and if they were just like, yeah, just make it kind of pew pew and whatever, and they were like, oh no, we literally designed the coolest weapon system ever, and there's sways and complicated reloads, and like, take all that out.
And this is, again, like, one of the things I really didn't like about BioShock, and this will also begin to be seen when we get to the live service era, or the RPG era, with Borderlands, The Division, and so on, is that you lose the impact of the weapons in favor of the numbers. So it's like, here's this enemy, I shoot him with a shotgun. Instead of them reacting, you hear him go, and you see, like, the health bar go from, like, here to there. And there's no real greater sense of, I just shot this guy with a shotgun in the head, and he just, like, went like that, and that's all we get out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens when you get shot with a shotgun. You just kind of,
Yep. Now we're not...
I am immersed.
Yeah.
I'm immersed, Josh.
Yeah, Pony. Now, what year was Gears of War? Do you remember that? Was that 2000?
Gears of War 2006.
2006. Okay, so we're getting there. So, as I said a few minutes ago, the game that I prefer much more in the kind of BioShock style is Clive Barker's The Undying. So, who here has played that one?
Missed out. See, I was playing BioShock, and that was the only shooter I played at that time. I did not. Was it what was it released on? Was it on PC also?
I think it was PC, maybe Xbox. Again,
it was not on. If it was not on PlayStation at that time, I did not play. Yeah,
definitely not.
Yeah, at that time I was in between PCs or something, and I did not have a gameable PC at that time. So tell me about this game, Josh.
So Clive Barker's Undying, it had very much that same system of one hand for guns and your traditional weapons, one hand for your spells. And you can swap between the two at will. And what it did was it made combat very interesting. That you have to mix gun with your spells. There is multiple secrets to it. You can upgrade your spells as well. Anyone who's played the game knows all about the cackling skulls. You get a spell that you just keep your hand out like this, and there's like a skull floating above your hand, like cackling, as you're waiting to fling it.
$5.99 right now on GOG. Mm-hmm. So,
and if you do want to play today, there have been fan-made patches and mods that like upscale it and make it at least somewhat playable today. And the enemies are very different as well. The game itself, similar to Half-Life, has this kind of like chapter format to it, where each chapter you're hunting down one of the demonic siblings you're trying to kill, and each one has their own unique army or their own unique thing that you're going to deal with. So, like, the first part, you're fighting these kinds of, like, banshees and, like, I'm not sure what we call them. Like, just, like, these, like, beasts that will run and charge at you. You then go to fighting plant monsters. There's these, like, annoying, like, vulture, buzzard, bird people in another dimension. You fight pirates at one point. And there's definitely a lot more to the general gameplay than just running and shooting. Now, to be fair to the game, the level design is its own unique nightmare compared to BioShock. Like, this is definitely more 90s era of where the heck am I going here kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
And it can get very confusing. And this game does have some puzzles and things you have to find in order to move the story along. Like, the first quarter of the game is notoriously slower than the 50% to the back half of it, simply because you don't have all your tools yet. And like the first quarter of the game is you just literally trying to piece together what is going on, and then getting the weapon that you're going to need to actually kill the baddies.
Wow, okay.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on MDK2, Pony. I still remember that one level I got horribly stuck at. I see the section in my head right now that I never managed to beat.
Did you say MDK?
MDK2.
Oh, 2.
Mm-hmm. I still see it in my head right now. The one area that I got stuck at. No idea. This was before the internet, before all the game facts and all that came out. So.
Oh yeah! Wow, man.
It was in a room that had like these like 3 like vents like sticking like from the ceiling. There's a door you couldn't open. There are like things on the wall that I shot that didn't do anything.
I love it.
Yes, air currents. There was like these rooms. I was like, I had no idea how to get past it. This was like 75 to 80% done of the game as well. But to get back to Undying, like, it is again like that kind of era where we got to see more interesting combat, more interesting environmental designs. Now, of course, the story ends with, like, sequel bait that we would never get. And they did, f.e.a.r did work on the game Jericho, which, depending upon who you speak to, is one of, like, the worst first-person shooters or one of the most misunderstood shooters of the time. But, yeah, very interesting game. I don't think it holds up as well as Half-Life. Like, it does more interesting things than Half-Life, but I think Half-Life is still the better package in this time compared to some of the other games.
Definitely. Yeah, like, I mean, you can play the whole entire orange box is still playable, right? So like all those shooters are still they are still playable.
Now, sadly, of course, I never got a chance to play No One Lives Forever. Did anyone here get a chance to play that one?
No, I did not. I've heard things about it. Anyone in chat?
Mm-hmm. The one that I did play that I still really remember was the Tron game. If anyone played the Tron first-person shooter that came out at this time, I think it was by the same developers as well. And
the second one.
And the Tron game, I loved it for the fact that your starting weapon is just that energy disc. So you're not using a gun; you're just throwing that frisbee out to be a bad guy as your main weapon.
Cool.
And yet, like again, like this, like the mid to end of 2000s for shooters is when we got to see some very interesting and experimental takes on the genre. So I guess let's bring up Fear and Condemn, because I think they were both done by the same company, and they both couldn't play any differently from one another.
Right.
So, which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Fear first.
All right. So, Fear is one of those games that it kind of has that same kind of pedestal that Half-Life and Halo has, as being remembered very fondly for its design. And I love Fear. Is it, again, I don't think I would say I would put in the same heights as Half-Life, but as a first-person shooter, as for its gunplay, it still is a fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the gunplay holds up. The I love the AI is like one of my favorite things about it, and also its ability to like bridge like this shooter horror thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it did it really well. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The AI design, I think, is still what a lot of people give credit to Fear. Like, this is, and like we over these last two parts, we really haven't focused a lot on enemy design and enemy behavior, because for a lot of these games, the enemies are just basic. They will either stand far away and shoot, or they charge at you with melee, and that's the only two ways that existed.
Mm-hmm.
Fear was that game where it's like, okay, these guys are going to hang back and cover. They're going to try and flank you. Anyone who's played Fear remembers when you hear the sound of that grenade being thrown from around the corner and going, oh no.
I think I said that the most of the game. Oh no.
It was very much that case where the enemies actually were escalated compared to other first-person shooters. And we could really say, I think, like, Fear was this first time that the enemies and the player, I think, felt really powerful, but for very different reasons. And we could argue that, like, Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 would be, like, another game that followed in that same aspect, where we want the player to feel like they're incredibly powerful, but we also want them to kind of fear or at least respect the enemies that they're fighting.
Exactly. Yeah, it does very well at balancing that. And again, that's through AI. And I know that the Doom games utilize some unique AI techniques also as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
where is it?
I know. Like, I think they did a lot in terms of like enemies that you're fighting will be like they kind of like moved through where like enemies like one enemy would be more aggressive and then they would switch to like another enemy who was more aggressive. Yes. But they didn't just make it like here's 30 enemies, they're all attacking at the same time kind of thing.
Yeah, there's like an AI like for Doom specifically. Mm-hmm. There's like an AI manager that keeps track of every AI that's there. It'll assign it a point of aggressiveness depending on like the type of mob it is, etc. And it said, okay, this person's been attacked that much. Let's back it down a little bit so they don't, depending on the difficulty level, whole bunch of things that are involved that make them feel alive. Other than, again, just flesh bags running at you and exploding, right? So,
yeah, and with Fear, it was one of those games where you had to respect the enemies. Like, they're not going to be passive, they're not going to just charge at you. And you're given tools to compensate for that. I mean, I think this was the first game that had slow-mo power or bullet time as one of your essential tricks. I just realized we forgot one other big game that came out at this time, and that would be Max Payne. And I forget when Max Payne came out. I want to say that was earlier than that.
If it is earlier, wow, watch it be like, I don't want to say the year.
I'll be like feeling even older now. Well, when them just shooting. Yeah, you could not do that in Fear. Like, if you stay in one spot, they will surround and take you out.
Right. The first one, 08. 2001 for what?
Max Payne.
Oh. Yes, 2001. I'm
Oh
sorry. I
man,
was looking up the wrong one.
I feel really old now.
Shouldn't have looked it up. But yeah, 2001.
Yep, like Max Payne. So Max Payne was the first one to do bullet time, and then f.e.a.r. followed that up. Like Max Payne, I guess to briefly go off on that road for a second. I'm not sure if Max Payne holds up as well, but it is a
Yeah.
really interesting take again of trying to build that story around the shooting. And I will not say it's as elegant as like the Half-Lives were, but it still I think has that like place in people's hearts.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I would actually like, I mean, if I had spare time, I'd like to go back and see if it does. Yeah, bullet time was massive in that game. I do wonder how it would hold up now, compared to the other shooters we've played now.
Yeah, I think it was one of those games where enemies were just really good at killing you in Max Payne. Yeah, Max Payne 2 I think holds up a little bit better. And I think it still looks really great, Max Payne 2 in terms of like the character models and the design. Yeah, Blood Rain. Yeah, I think Max Payne was the one that started bullet time, and then everyone wanted to try and use bullet time in their shooters in some respect.
Man, I can't remember. There was a multiplayer game that was released that was free that had, and it was all based on bullet time. I can't remember if
Could have
anybody can
been.
remember the name of it.
Was it Action Half Life? Or
Um,
was it something else?
Something else. I cannot. Someone remembers it with Blood Rain. It was not Blood Rain.
No, I think he was talking about another game with bullet
Okay.
time. Oh, yes. Yeah, again, like the early 2000s, that was also the era of a lot of mods for first-person shooters. I mean, I still remember playing They Hunger from Half-Life, and we don't have the time to get into modding here. We're already almost at an hour. We could be, if we start talking about mods and conversions for shooters, we'll
We're
be
already in
here.
an hour. We've only talking about like 2 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna have to be. I was joking around, but it might end up being like a 6-parter.
Oh no.
It's kind of amazing when you really step back and think about like how influential and how much this genre, like how
Mm-hmm.
big it is, right? It's like
Yeah.
almost would literally think it's like the only, like that and Mario are like the only genres that exist.
Mm-hmm. And to go back to f.e.a.r, one of the things I think the thing that didn't hold up for me as much was the horror aspects.
Yeah.
I felt like the game it didn't do a good job of merging shooting and horror. It felt a little too segmented. It's like, okay, here's the shooting, and then it's
Here's
done.
the
Now we put the gun away, and now the
Now
jump
here's the
scare
whole
happens.
right, right. Like you, there was no, but I mean, with all giving them the benefit of the doubt, I think that's probably pretty hard to do, and I'll just give them the benefit as probably being the best ones to pull it off at the time. That's all I can say. But yeah, that definitely for sure. You knew it was jump scare time. You knew it was shooty time. You know, there was
Mm-hmm.
no differentiation there.
Yeah. But being one of the first person shooters that's going to tongue tie me up for this episode to have like melee combat. Again, when we talk about Gears of War, they have of course the famous chainsaw on the gun. But f.e.a.r was this game. I mean, who here hasn't done like that bicycle kick when you run at a guy, you bicycle kick them as a way of killing them? And like it was very good at kind of allowing the player again to have that power. But I guess here's the interesting thing about f.e.a.r, and I think it's a really good contrast with Half-Life and BioShock. f.e.a.r is not really memorable, I think, when it comes to level environmental design.
I was literally just about to ask you. I said, what do you remember from the game at
I remember
all?"
a lot of water coolers in all the rooms and the snack machines.
I remember like having to move around an 18-wheeler and then a projection machine somewhere, and that's about it.
Yeah, like this is very much when we get to like Fear is definitely an example of a game that's built on its moment to moment and its gunplay, and not really anything else. Like the enemies are challenging, but they're kind of one-offs. Like it's here's generic soldier dude. Here's his 800,000 brothers that you're going to be identical that you're going to be fighting, except for like those big heavy guys with the railgun.
Right.
Like, and again, like that's where like the whole segmenting of the horror and the shooting took place. Like you never really fought like the ghost. I think just got killed by one bullet. Like it was like, oh no, there's a ghost on me. Boom. Okay, we move on. Like it never felt like the area. Like I guess I'm going to damn this game. I guess when I say this, but it did feel at times more like a tech demo in terms of what they can do, but but
100
the
agreed.
game, like it felt more like again like showing off what they could do with this engine and the AI, and then the idea of the game came maybe second or third down the line.
More like the game was like a tech demo, like it was like all of the tech guys, all the tech developers were like, look, we can do this with the AI, and look, the soda machine can explode this way, and you know, and then they put it all together, and then that's it. And then they were like, they didn't have what did you think of the story?
It's there. Like the only thing I remember of the story is the end with the nuclear blast. Like that's literally it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
they made that horror movie mistake of trying to make it more and more involved into Fear 2 and then into Fear 3.
Right. I dropped off then. Okay, here's a question, Josh. Which had a better narrative story, a BioShock or Fear?
I would probably say BioShock.
BioShock.
I think
Hands down.
BioShock is far more memorable. I think part of it is the sense of place that BioShock had better than Fear. Fear,
So
of course.
Fear is more like you were saying the tech demo. So the place where you're at, where we're in the world, doesn't really matter. It could be anywhere, right?
Mhm.
Is that the sense you get? It doesn't really. Okay, I'm inhabiting this world, and there's a reason why it's this way. It's literally the most plain backrooms world that there could be, and then these things are just happening in it, right?
Yeah. Like, again, like, you just kind of get, like, shuttled from area to area. There's no sense of, like, a place. Oh, and thank you to Malwini's to mention Far Cry. Like, Far Cry is a very interesting game. The first two, I should say, are fascinating in terms of being, like, this, like, open world, or very open map with the exploration of the combat and doing things along those lines. And it kind of did like become like an open world first person shooter.
Was it really 2004 for the first one?
Ooh, you
Wow.
feel even older there. I will say I did not play a lot of Far Cry 2. I've heard people say it's either the best in the series for all the unique stuff it does, or it's the most annoying and fiddly of the series for all the stuff it does.
I did not. I have no hours clocked in on 2, so I cannot chime in on there. The only thing I could chime in developer wise is that they were trying to do everything that they wanted to do in 1 that they couldn't with the budget, and tried to do it in 2 and ran out of money. And so if it feels clunky, that's what happened. That's just what I'm going to guess.
But to move, or as a really good segue from talking about Fear, I guess anything else about Fear before we move on and talk about Condemned?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we kind of went over it. I actually now feel like I like it less now that I'm thinking. I thought I liked the level design more, and when I'm really looking at it now, I don't remember a single thing about it. This, like you said, the soda machines, and so basically AI. Decent decent game, gunplay. Other than that, yeah, you know.
I guess my final thought on Fear is that it is a great example of having challenging enemies that can really elevate combat. And
Right.
like it definitely like the Combine soldiers couldn't hold a candle to the f.e.a.r. Hona troops we were fighting there.
Right. Right. Indeed.
But when I think about like good environmental and level design wrapped up in interesting combat, it goes to Condemned Criminal Origins. It's still a game that I really love. Did you play that one?
I did not. I did
Ah.
not. I did not. So sadly, I won't be able to offer much. Anybody in chat?
While we wait for Chad, what Condemned did right is that it's a first person shooter, but it's not really about shooting. It's kind of more first person survival horror. And that kind of it's kind of like a rule break for our topic this week, as it is a game that's more about moving through the environments very slowly. It's a game where guns are very powerful, but they are super, super limited. But of the games that we've talked about up until this point, I think this is the one that has done the horror environmental design the best out of them. It is a game where you are always on edge about when someone's going to come and fight you. And it's also a game where one enemy is a handful. They've designed the enemy so that when you hit them, they will react to that attack. Like if you remember when I talked about with BioShock, you shoot the guy and he just goes like, eh. And this is a game, you hit the guy in the head with a shovel, he gets like flung back like 4 or 5 feet, like holding his head, like screaming and cursing at you.
Was this the one that featured like really realistic? Like, I think if you didn't have a weapon, like, didn't you start off with your fists and that like they react very realistically?
Mm-hmm. And you can pick up like almost like any blunt instrument and use it as a weapon.
Right. That's right. Now I got it's only $14.95. So if anybody's interested,
and maybe someday they'll port Condemned 2. Even though it's not as successful as the first one, it did do a lot more in terms of the investigation side compared to the first game. But yeah, like one of the things they did in Condemned was they programmed the enemies that if you're within a certain foot or a certain distance of the enemy after they've been hit, they will auto counter you. So that enemy who's like holding his head like this, if you're within certain feet, he'll go like this. He'll just recover, just like punch you right in the face. So you have to be prepared for that. But it is again very much more on the horror side than a shooter. But it also did really great things in terms of making the weapons feel good. Like again, like when you swing that axe, it feels completely different than if you're just like holding like a baton and you're just like smacking them like that.
Wow. Did you play Condemned 2?
Yes, I did. All the way through on the highest difficulty back in the day. And yeah, it was painful. Like it became more the second game is more of a first person shooter than the first game.
Okay.
The first one,
the guns were more prevalent. Josh Meyer is saying.
Yeah. First one was so much more atmospheric. One of the best levels in that game, and I still hold this as an example of fantastic level design, is the farmhouse level. I think this would be considered the penultimate level. In this level, and I brought this up many times before, it is open-ended. You're exploring this kind of townhouse, trying to find clues. So you need to find I think it's like 4 or 5 clues in order to complete the level. But where you go in the house is entirely like open to you. There are some things that you'll find that will open up different parts, but like there's very little music. It's all like environmental noise you have to pay attention to. And it does such a good job of like this idea of just investigating this place and knowing that there's probably danger all around you and you have no idea where it's coming from.
Well, you sold me. Definitely makes way more intriguing and a lot more stuff you can do in that.
And if you do decide to pick it up on PC, please know that there is a horrible memory leak that you will need a fan patch to fix that. Because that is where the real horror is.
It wouldn't be a horror game with that. It's not a real horror game without a fan patch required.
You have like Vampire the Masquerade there.
There you go.
Yeah. Dark Are you wait, am I confusing the Darkness? Oh yeah, I'm confusing Darkness with the Suffering. Very depressive names, but also very different. Darkness was also, like, the first one was really interesting. Completely different developers, I think, I think it was the same developers who did the first and the second one, but completely different experience from the Darkness 2, or Darkness 1 to the Darkness 2. Darkness was later. I want to say that was early 2010s. I know Darkness 2 was definitely in the 2010s. Like, that was like right around. That was done by the guys who did Warframe before they went on and did that. I think Darkness 1 was like 2008, 2009. My memory is
2007.
Oh, I was almost there. But yeah, like the middle of the 2000s was definitely more about, as we talk about with Fear, Condemned, and so on. We're getting into very different takes on first-person shooting and just first-person combat. That game, I think, was a beatdown for the Xbox. I still wish I could play more of that one. That was the first-person kind of fighting game where like you're fighting all these like strange enemies and you have to like beat them up. And I think there's like no guns. And I think you like got all your health from vending machines. You just like ran around like breaking vending machines, getting a candy bar, and it heals
Eating
you.
candy bars and old hot dogs.
Yeah,
Breakdown was cool.
And before I forget about Condemned, as I said earlier, like one of the most memorable levels in terms of environmental and level design was a decrepit mall where there's mannequins all set up, and some of those mannequins were not mannequins. Yes. And like that is a level that makes you paranoid if you ever play through that one. And like the best strategy in that is just beat up all the mannequins. Like no one's gonna complain that you're attacking mannequins. And it's like you hit the mannequin like, okay, fake, and then the guy yells when you hit him and makes you jump.
Bree was first base player. Yeah, I actually think I did play the demo for Condemned. I think I do remember playing the demo for it. It was really very brutal. I think it was very brutal.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about brutal, this is also the time when we got Soldier of Fortune, one of the most infamously like ESRB hating games around. This was the game that gave us like full defamation when it came to like guns on characters.
What game did that one? That one was 2000?
Really? Was it that? Oh, that could explain why it made everyone get crazy about it. Was that early?
Yeah, it was in the 2000s. They weren't ready yet.
Mm-hmm. And then like a few years later, we got the Sniper Elite games, where now they do super slow-mo. You can watch the bullet actually enter the body and pierce the esophagus and then go out and hit someone else.
I wonder about the animators that have to do that. Like, poor animators.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So we're still in the 2000s. We should definitely bring up, of course, Battlefield, Gears of War.
Battlefield, Gears of War, Left 4 Dead, mm-hmm. Team Fortress 2. Yep. Crisis might have to do another episode.
We're stuck in the 2000s,
and we're still in the 2000s. Yeah, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
When are we gonna do that? And the MMO is gonna be like 10 episodes.
Especially with Ramin. Like when we get Ramin and Sev talking, that will be like a 10-parter for sure.
For sure.
To Pony's talking about Prey and. And Painkiller as well. Like, those kinds of games started to do very interesting things with weapon design. Prey, of course, had the whole use of gravity, when you're like actually be able to walk up walls and use ceilings to fight on enemies. Painkiller was kind of the evolution of the Serious Sam formula, being more dark and gothic. But again, really doing interesting things with weapons. Like the 2000s, I guess, would you agree that the 2000s was the era when we really got secondary attacks on guns in FPSs?
Definitely, 100%.
Like, it was no longer just about, here's a pistol, here's a shotgun, here's a sniper rifle. It's like, here's this pistol, It can also freeze enemies. The shotgun's
Right.
a grenade launcher. The sniper rifle is a lightning storm
Hold
weapon.
down to power up, like power it up and stuff like that. Definitely, yeah, it was unacceptable to have just a gun do one function. It was not going to work at that time. So yeah, for sure.
And this
Jedi
is
Academy, I did not play that one.
I played very little of it. The only thing I remember about that was this level with like snipers, and
No.
I'm trying to kill him with my lightsaber, and they're just like sniping me from across the map. Which incidentally is how Medal of Honor played out, but minus the lightsabers.
Right.
There weren't any lightsabers in World War II, I'm afraid.
No, unfortunately not.
Let's see. So Painkiller, and Painkiller is probably more known again. Like I don't know if it holds up as well from a level of environmental design. It's definitely more. But when we talk about this idea of spectacle, it is certainly a peak example of that. When you fight a boss who's like 80 feet tall, and that's the guy that I used for the thumbnail for this week's episode. And you're just like shooting. I remember like you shoot your little stake gun, you just see like the stake like traveling in the air, and like I see like him, you see like health bar go like that when you like shoot him with a stake.
Yeah. Hey, were you doing a speed run at the time? Were you speed running it?
No, I was just like just flinging stakes at them.
The stake run.
Let me see. And I also there's one other game that I need to see what year it came out. Also to be shocked how old I am. Oh yes, we have to talk about Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl, but I will say that for the end of this video because I have the most to talk about on that one. So let's talk a little bit about. Let's go to the multiplayer side with Battlefield, and then we'll kind of move forward from Battlefield and on. But this is of course, we've spent it's almost an hour and 20. It feels like, again, like it's only been like 30 minutes.
Definitely. Wow. Like 2 games.
Yeah. We focused on single player, but the multiplayer side in the 2000s became more group-based. That it's no longer about, here's 5 people in a room, start shooting each other. It's more, okay, we have teams. We have, 30 on 30 multiplayer. I think Battlefield was like 50 on 50 or 25 on 25.
Yeah, or like I think they got up to 64 or 64. One game had one that was 64 or 64. I can't remember, but yeah, definitely up there.
Yeah. And the Battlefields became known for, again, like being like massively multiplaying before like the MMO really like took that term. I did not play any of Battlefield. Like I said, like the multiplayer side of shooters just didn't really work for me. But did you play any of Battlefield?
Yes, I did. I did play it a little bit. But again, I mean, we're talking about like it's a giant Battlefield. I have a bunch of friends who love it, who are big fans of it. But me personally, when you have to like that type of team-based like cooperation for a shooter really just isn't my jam, and the amount of like investment that's required to understand like the planes and the tanks and the person stuff like that. No, I was not. It was just like a little bit too much to manage for me. You know what I mean? Like I can a death match or a free for all or something like that. I'll enjoy, but when it's kind of like team-based shooting and stuff like that, I kind of get a little anxious about it, and I don't really enjoy it that much. So I kind of skipped out.
And that's also why I didn't really play Counter-Strike. I found Counter-Strike way too stressful. Yeah. And League of Legends, but those are topics for another day.
Oh my gosh, we're just gonna have one called League of Legends Stress.
There you go, exactly. But yeah, like Battlefield, it still holds up from a design standpoint as being game of here's a lot of people fighting each other all at once. Red Orchestra would probably fit, but of course being far smaller. And this is when we got, like, if the single-player side was more about making unique guns, unique gameplay, multiplayer in 2000s was more about, we want more. We want more people fighting each other. We want more this idea that it's not just like a little room. We want massive environments, massive gameplay. And again, it worked for those
Yeah.
multiplayer shooters.
It definitely worked. I mean, and it was kind of like because let's see, Battlefield 2 came out in 05, so we were definitely already had the decent network connectivity to handle all that. And I mean, I think it was really the first one to implement like large scale battles in that regard. And with even, I don't think it did any persistent stuff, did it?
Not in the first one. I think the most it did was like track like win loss, kills, and all that.
Right.
But yeah, like the whole persistent aspect that comes up in a very big point when we get into the 2010s. At some point in the series, when we get there,
the series, at some point in the series. But yeah, no, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, and I was going to bring up like Left 4 Dead and Team Fortress next, and as a complete shocker to me, my brain can't process the fact that Left 4 Dead came out in 2008. Like, I cannot believe it's been that long since Left 4 Dead was released.
Yeah, my notes do concur with that.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, like Team Fortress 2 is eternal. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Team Fortress, and then we'll kind of... I do want to talk about Stalker as well, but that could be like another 30 minutes. We may have to save that for the next part.
Well, then let's just finish up with Team, because we didn't even get into Crisis or Borderlands or
we didn't
talk about Gears of War or Left 4 Dead. So yeah,
maybe we'll save Stalker for when we get to like the RPG cycles. It is very much occupies that level.
Right. And maybe I can play it this week again.
Exactly, Pony. Just add 2 more hours to the show. It's easy.
It's easy. It's super easy. Yeah.
Just as easy as making a game in Unity. You just hit that button, it adds 3 more hours. You hit that button in Unity, it just finishes your game for you.
That's right. And that's right. On May 1st, I'm going to be giving a conference about just pressing the button to make the game. Just so catch me there.
You should put in the presentation. Here's my entire presentation about AI in games. Hit this button, the Unity does it for you, and that's my talk. Thank you.
My talk. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Okay, so Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, so Team Fortress. This is a game this was definitely one that I mentioned in 20 Essential Games to Study because it is such an important game. Not just for first-person shooting, but just for its place in the market. This was, of course, the banner game out of the orange box. The idea that you could get Half-Life 2, Portal, and Team Fortress for what was like $30? Like again, like
yes.
And here's another point of dating. This was also when Steam began to offer the big Steam sale. It was like, here's a $60 game for $3. I remember that period. It was a beautiful time for consumers, and we will never see that ever again on Steam.
Man, oh wow.
But yet, so much about Team Fortress, or Team Fortress 2, is a game that I guess here's a question for you and for chat. I feel like when Team Fortress, like when War and stuff was getting out about like before it was released, it had that same kind of stigma as the cel-shaded Legend of Zelda game whose name is escaping me right now.
Wind Waker?
Wind Waker, yes.
Yeah.
I felt like when people were first looking at like the redesigns for the art and all that, like they were just going, ugh. Like again, like remember, like the 2000s was the era of the browns and the grays.
Browns and the grays, yeah.
So did you feel that way when like just before Team Fortress 2 was like being released?
Yes, I did. It kept me away for a little bit because I was just like, oh, I don't know. Grays really didn't. They were just, it was just propaganda, and they made us believe we wanted browns and grays, but we didn't.
I
But
can.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
did you have the same feeling too? Like, were you like, I don't know. Now it's fine. Like now you can come out, everything's cell shaded. You can be all cell shaded however you want to, and no one's gonna bat an eye. But back then, definitely for sure. I mean, what'd you think about it when it was coming out?
Again, as someone who doesn't play multiplayer shooters, I wasn't really looking at
Right,
that
wasn't
game to
even.
begin with. But
Yeah,
the thing that sold me on it, and this is again one of these I talk about in the 20th Central Games of Study, was the personality of the game. They had perhaps the greatest marketing campaign I think of any game to this point with
right.
the Meet the Team videos.
Yep. Yeah, they carried that on, and they tried to do that with what was their next? The other, not Blizzard tried to kind of do it with
Overwatch.
Overwatch, right? They tried to do the meet the team thing, but yeah, Team Fortress did it perfectly, and it ended up being, was it the Machinima or whatever? That was kind of like, it came
Yeah.
around there too, so that people were. They released something that allowed you. I can't remember. It's
Like
missing my mind. But
filmmaker.
a filmmaker with the source engine, so you could actually create. So you could have so getting into the content creation there, you could create movies and films with the characters in there, which is genius.
Yeah.
And there's much more genius to be told.
For sure. And as a quick tangent from that genius, I looked up the all-time reviews for Team Fortress 2.
Oh my.
It is sitting at just under 950,000 reviews on Steam. It may
Wow.
I don't think there's any game on Steam that has like 1 million reviews to it. But like
Wow.
Team Fortress is close to that number. And
Yeah.
as Pony said a few minutes ago, it is one of those internal games. And a lot of that is with the gameplay itself. It kind of married, I think, a lot of the single player aspects we were talking about to the multiplayer side. Like, it doesn't really play like other multiplayer shooters if you think about
not
it.
at all. Not at all. Like, did you? Okay, so you said, did you have any hours in it, playing it?
I do. I did play that pretty well right up until Left 4 Dead came out, and then Left 4 Dead
Got
kind of
you.
became my new FPS baby.
So then I'm gonna ask you the stress level. We're talking about Battlefield compared to playing Team Fortress was completely different, right? Like
Yeah.
you enjoyed the matches, I'm assuming, and I think maybe one of the reasons is that it played so different is because it had the class-based stuff, right? Like it was the first one. You were talking about MMO, it literally put like a holy trinity in a shooter. Like I think it might be the first one to have done that. And it is eternal. Like I'm trying it, like it holds up like so well. I last time I booted up, I was like, I can't believe it plays so well. Like it shoots, it feels so good to shoot or to be like whatever I'm doing, moving, everything felt good. And would you agree, Josh?
Yeah. And I think part of why it holds or why it plays so differently is that it never really, I think, chased after the same kind of market as other multiplayer, other competitive based shooters. Like if you look at a game like Counter-Strike, it is a game that is very, I'm not sure the word I want to say, like, it's very rigid in its structure. Like, it's a game where you play it one way and that's it. It rewards you for that one way and one and done. Team Fortress just felt like, okay, what do you want to do today? You want to mess around with cards? Go do that. You want to just do some random deathmatch on a server? Go nuts. Here's Fort. Do that. And it felt very much like a game where what you want to do could change day by day.
Yeah.
And the game was set up to support that.
Definitely.
Yes, headshots and shooters. That's another fun thing.
Yeah. We're gonna have a whole episode of why I didn't like this shooter because I was headshot in 2 seconds.
And I think with Team Fortress, oh yes, and Hitman, I don't know if I would call Hitman a shooter. I know it's third person, you shoot, but it feels like such a different kind of design.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That would be like, I feel like it's almost calling Manhunt a shooter. Like, Was there guns in Manhunt? No, I don't think so.
Well, I know Emmy said shoot you, but I don't remember you
Right?
actually had guns.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I played the Hitman games like being horrible at complete stealth and being
Yes,
spied in
yes. I
like
played
5
it
seconds.
in the worst way possible. It's how I played it.
But to get back to Team Fortress, like the thing that I think made Team Fortress stand out again is that this was the game that really showed people live service would work. Because remember, 2007 to like 2010, the only games that really went all in on multiplayer were MMORPGs. No one thought, hey, we could support first-person shooter for 10 years, or
Yeah.
even 3 years. And even like the best shooters at that time, I think Deus Ex would be more in the sim genre. But like
Yeah.
Deus Ex, like if we get to the immersive sims, that's a conversation. Like we do influential games on immersive sims. That's 4 hours, I think, easily.
For sure. Yeah, but that does not qualify, unfortunately.
But
neither does Mirror's Edge.
yeah, Mirror's Edge is more first-person combat. It's a fantastic game that I've only played very little of it because, again, Origin is keeping me away from that.
Right, anything Origin. No.
Mm-hmm. But to Team Fortress's point, like it's a game that became more than its gameplay. And like we've said, like you have the Meet the Team videos, which I sometimes like once like a year. Sometimes I just like sit, and I just rewatch them all over again. You have the Manco store. You have holiday events. You have the machinima aspects. You have this idea that there's more going on in this game than you just running around shooting people.
Indeed. Well said. Well said.
Yep, the hat. Oh, yes, Pony. That's right. This is when personalization became a thing, and they introduced hats. And once again, just like horse armor, people are like, ew, you want me to pay 99 cents for a hat? Why would I ever do that? And now we fast forward to the day with people spending $800,000 to get, that unique skin for their knife or the camo on their gun. And freaking out when they open up the loot box of the slot machine in a Counter-Strike or Payday.
And just so you know, there's 92,000 people playing Team Fortress 2 right now.
Oof. I never played the Ghost Recon games. I played the one, not Wildlands, the one that came out after that one. The latest Ghost Recon. I think that's what it is, Ghost Recon. Again, like I do not have a lot of memory of anything Tom Clancy. Like, I remember picking up Rainbow Six, failing at it and uninstalling it, playing The Division, being horrible at Rainbow Six Siege, and that's it. Those are my 3 memories of anything Tom Clancy.
Yeah, pretty much the same here. Same here. I think there was another Tom Clancy game on like the PlayStation 2 that I have nightmares about, but I cannot remember.
Splinter Cell?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the what year does Splinter Cell come out?
Ooh, I'm afraid to even think about it because I may turn to dust.
Oh no, we're gonna turn to dust, Josh.
Now you got me curious here.
Okay. I don't think that the first one, 2002.
Oof, man, that's old.
Yeah.
But to stick on Team Fortress is again that idea where you could do so much in that space, and it is one again like it's one of those like theory crafts. Like if it came out like 5 years later, would it have been supported differently than it was in 2007. Same thing goes for Left 4 Dead, because I mean we kind of saw how Back 4 Blood turned out, whereas Left 4 Dead became. I would have loved for more content in Left 4 Dead, but the question is, what kind of content would we have gotten?
Indeed.
But with Team Fortress, again, the game became so much of a different beast. So here's a question for you: when they began to introduce all the weapons, when it started to introduce all the cosmetics, all the different side grades, what did you think of how the gameplay turned into from that point?
Like how it changed the
Yeah.
gameplay, or how it I wasn't sure. I really was. I'm more like, as I wanted to see what was going to happen in the future, and I really couldn't digest at the time like how it was affecting it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because again, it was like the first time that something was really doing that. So I was like, what's going to happen here? What do you think, Joshua? Did it?
Yeah, like I think I'm in that same spot as you guys. I know people who will swear that the weapons and stuff saved Team Fortress, and people who swear that it killed Team Fortress or
Team
it ruined the
Fortress,
game
yeah.
for them.
Right.
And yeah,
Uh,
and I think Pony has a good point there that it became very bloated. Like, if you remember the original Team Fortress, we talk about like
yes.
iconography and symbology. Like, it became very clear. Like, you see a heavy, he is fundamentally different when you see a medic or spy. But then it turns to, here's a heavy with a pirate hat and a chain gun that heals, and the bullets bounce off walls. Here's a heavy with a Viking helmet, tuxedo shirt, and his gun, bullets shoot like one at a time, but there's like 20% more damage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Like, and in a way, it kind of like goes against the original design of the game, right? When I was originally talking about like it had this Trinity, it played completely different, and then instead, I think with all of that modification, it kind of homogenized everything, and the parts that are distinct of it are no longer distinct and stand out.
Yeah, like it got to that point where it became like, and I think this is a really interesting point whenever we do more talk about live service. It became too much of a game, if that makes sense. Like, it's no longer about, hey, I log on for a few hours and I play with my friends. It's now, I log on, I have to make sure I get my daily crates. What do all these new weapons do? What's all these new modes? And it's a very tough thing, again, when we talk about games being supported long term. I just did my post this last week about kind of how a lot of games have struggled with the live service content. And like Team Fortress, I think, is no exception to that. It's had impressive short and mid-term size content, but has the game really transformed in terms of its gameplay over the past, what are we now at, like 13 years, give or take?
Yeah.
No, wait, 10 would be, no, I think it would be, no, like, oh my goodness, well, 16 years now.
16 years? I wanted to do the math.
Yeah, I know. But again, like, it is one of those games that I feel like, and I think some people have felt this way, that Valve has really kind of, like, they support it for some time, and then they just said, okay, that's it, we're kind of done with it.
Yeah. You know what? I really want to, I want to go back now, and we should have like a multiplayer night and like try it out and see how it still holds, how it feels, how much it's changed from its original. Because its original incarnation, I was a pretty big fan of it. I liked how well the engine ran. Again, the Holy Trinity I thought was the stress level of it for being a shooting game was really low. Like it's actually more like almost a cozy shooter compared to something like Battlefield.
Yeah, there was no stakes, and I think that is one of the subtle geniuses of Team Fortress. Again, if you fail in Counter-Strike, oh my god, it is the worst thing imaginable, and your team will hate you until the sun dies.
Yeah, forever. They're gonna be carving your name into the wall, definitely. It's a whole different stress level.
And like, to get that back to the point of live service, like, there are developers I know who would kill for the name recognition and the prestige that Team Fortress has. Like, if they could work on Team Fortress, Like, imagine like a Team Fortress with like the same model as like an Arc Knight or a Genshin Impact. Like that would be like the dream for some developers.
Definitely.
Oh no, Pony's throwing shade at all the Pyro mains right now.
And not much Twitch aiming was required in that game at all.
Mm-hmm. You know? And again, like, it's one of those games where you don't necessarily need to like all the classes, you just need to like one. If you just want to play just the heavy, you can do that. If you want to play as the soldier or the scout, you can do that. And again, it did such a great job of expanding the universe out of the game. And I mean, even to this day, like, even like the likes of like Apex Legends, Overwatch, Fortnite, like, their universes feel so like forced to me.
Yeah.
Compared to Team Fortress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it. Like Team Fortress. I don't know if it was because it's the original, but it was so organic compared to like these, I guess, which are like created marketing campaigns to try and appear that way. And I think that's what it is. Is that they're really marketingly forced. Like the Apex commercial I just saw, I don't know, like 5 seconds ago, drove me insane. I was like, I'm not playing it now. I'm not.
Yep, and like with like that kind of like personality, like Team Fortress, I think it just popped in my head, like they may have been the masters of events for their games long before the likes of studios like MiHoYo, YoStar, and so on. Like this idea that, hey, you know, for the next week we're going to release an original comic panel to describe the lore of the upcoming weapons. And then we're going to have, like, anyone here remembers, like, the whole gunboats incident where, you know, Demolitionist versus Soldier, and the team that killed the most got that unique item for their class.
Yes.
Like, these are things that, again, like, it sounds so quaint when we say it today, but, like, this was, like, unheard of for any game. To just say, okay, we're going to give you a week's worth of free content, and you don't have to pay anything for it, and it's now in our game.
I couldn't even imagine. Can you imagine being the one in the room to pitch that and be like, look, guys, we're going to offer it for free, and it's going to work. I couldn't imagine, like, the first pitch for that, and then it just...
I would love to be the fly on the wall when they were talking about, why don't we just put hats in our game? Like, who would care about hats? Like, it just seems like such an okay thing, you know? It won't go anywhere.
Guys, I got the best idea. Hats.
Oh, yes, and that's why I didn't play on the voice servers, Malwinius.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yes, I forgot about that.
And Team Fortress, of course, went free to play. That was a major point that I talk about in my free to play book. The idea of transitioning the game into being a free to play and completely upending how monetization worked in it.
Right.
So here's a question for everyone watching. Do you remember when the Mac earbuds came out for Team Fortress and how, like, the Team Fortress world collapsed in on itself? With people, like, rushing to, like, Mac computers to get those earbuds, and then they sold them for, like, $800 or something like that.
No, I do not. Wow.
I remember that. This was before the count. This could have been probably why they introduced the whole crate system into Counter-Strike. Was, like, people lost their minds for those Mac earbuds.
You bought 2 pairs, Josh.
Oh, no, I did not, but oh my goodness. And yes, this is the era, or Team Fortress brought really the idea of virtual items having very real-world costs to them.
Yeah.
And your camera kind of went a little hazy there. Like, you look like, it's like, okay, there you go. You kind of like ghost out there for a second. But yeah, like...
You got condemned.
Yeah, there you go. Fear. Fear. But yeah, like the idea of virtual goods having real world value, I think Team Fortress is the game that cemented it. Because when we flash forward to today, with mobile games and monetization. It's very much that same thing of, yes, it's just a character in a game like Arknights or Genshin or whatever mobile or gacha game you play, but they have all these crazy stuff to it, or the skin has all these weird effects and sound cues, and it makes a character look completely different. So we can charge $69.99 for that now, or $39 or whatever. And I think to talk a little bit more about the gunplay to begin to wrap things up about Team Fortress. Again, it is a game where every character feels different with their weapons, and it feels good, or at least it feels like you're relearning being a sniper, to going to the scout, to being a medic.
And I think one of the really nice things about it, it allows you, because when you're playing, I don't know, for example, let's go back to Battlefield. You're just a regular, right? You're just a regular person, right? Or whatever you are, regular Battlefield dude. And maybe you have your loadout and stuff like that, and just your gun might be different or this or that. But actually, like, every aspect in your responsibility is different in the game, and so you can choose, you know what, I just want to hang out and heal, like, you know what I mean, I just want to hide and just heal someone, or I want to go out there and I want to snipe. And I think giving that diversification of roles, and again, you like you said, you only have to like one of them, right? It's not like I have to be a master at all of them. No, I can just medic it all day if I want to, or whatever. And I think that, and they even pulled it off better. Like, I would say they pulled it off better than Overwatch in the way of classes. Would you agree?
Yeah, like, it felt like when it was with Overwatch, it's like, yeah, I could play as a mech, but if my team desperately needs that sniper or that tank,
right,
then I'm going to be dogpiled on, especially if there's someone else who's a mech. Like, again, like, Overwatch to me felt like the more competitively driven version of Team Fortress. Like,
definitely.
all the stress and low stakes of Team Fortress, that all went to Overwatch.
Right. Are you too calm and chill out when you're playing Team Fortress 2?
And I have watched rage videos and horrible troll player videos of Overwatch, and it is a delight, I guess, is the word I could use.
I honestly regret every ounce of time that I put into the Overwatch. It was fun at times, but man, the lows are low in that game. So yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it eventually, though.
Someday we'll get to it.
Someday.
See, anything else about Team Fortress? Like, again, it was one of those games that it proved that live service could work. It proved that you could do a shooter without being all brown and gray. It was very colorful. It was very delightful. Yeah, exactly, Pony. Yeah, let me get on that right now. And yeah, like, again, like, it proved that you could do something different. Again, like, everyone here remembers the Meet the Sandwich video, I think, for their April Fools, and how they made us all fall in love with a sandwich.
Yeah. And like you said, this was the brown and gray era, and they really they pulled the Wind Waker, right? And they pulled it off so successful. Genius marketing campaign. It felt, and something about the marketing, again, like, I don't know why that game felt so organic and everything that it did, but it did. It really came out organically about it, and I don't think any game will be able to replicate that again. They might be able, get close to it, like you said,
without being like forced or commercialized.
Right, like it would just have to be a rare unicorn that just somehow the community spuns together. But I mean, that the way that Team Fortress, and even the way it still holds up to this day, I think it's great, and a really good study in all aspects, from marketing to live service,
gameplay.
Yeah.
I guess one final gush on the Meet the Team videos before I stop. The Pyro one, when they use "Do you believe in magic?" with the Pyro there.
That's a classic one right there. Now we got to go rewatch them all.
Exactly. And again, we're talking about this stuff, and it's such a strange thing. Like, as we've been going over these parts, like, we've been talking a lot about elements that today it's been overdone. Like,
Right.
everyone else has tried to copy Team Fortress, everyone's tried to copy Live Service or Half-Life, but the originals just really stood out in terms of their design. Like, no one else was really thinking about making a shooter like this.
Yeah, indeed. And it almost makes me wonder if like they knew what they were making, right? Like they
Yeah,
were just kind of trying things out and things just started sticking to the wall, you know?
yeah.
And it just organically happened. Cuz I don't know how you could plan that out so perfectly, right?
Yeah. And I know from their GDC talk, like, a lot of it just came after the success of the game and then wanting to continue to support it.
Right.
And again, there were no other people making a first person shooter. Like, they didn't have someone else they could look at to say, oh, let's just do it like them. They
Right.
had to figure it out all on their own. And
Yeah.
like, to bring this to that greater discussion about game development, it's why the first games blow up so well. Like, when you're the one who defines the playbook,
Right.
you get that prestige. It's why, again, people know the name Vampire Survivor, why they know Darkest Dungeon and FTL. And let's just talk about them now, because, this won't be that, we're not already, like, past our time.
What else?
Mm-hmm.
Factorio, you know,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Just
Subnautica,
Minecraft. No one's ever played Minecraft before.
Minecraft.
But I'm trying to think anything else regarding Team Fortress, because otherwise I think we can use this as our stop point for tonight.
No, I think we are good. Let me look over my notes of Team Fortress. We went over the mods, the graphics, team-based gameplay. Yeah, I think that's good for that. Great game. I want to
Mm-hmm.
play it on. I want to do multiplayer, see how it holds up.
Yeah, maybe. And we need to get you on for Back for Blood at some point. I think
Back
it's
for
on
Blood,
sale now
yes.
too.
Is it on sale? Good, because last I looked, that was like $60. I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it.
So I think with that we'll wrap things up. But speaking about nom nom nom, I need to go have some dinner and
Yeah,
do my own thing. But
yeah,
yeah, we will have to. I think for next time we'll get into the era of kind of the RPGification of shooters with the rise of perks and stuff in Call of Duty, Payday, Borderlands. Definitely, I'll be talking for us about Stalker for a pizza time. Thank you, Pony. uh, we'll be talking more about kind of the rise of kind of where people decide to expand on the Team Fortress model to make shooters that are no longer, again, about being this one and done thing, about trying to do more with it. We'll definitely throw in Spec Ops, the line at this point as well.
yes. Oh, yes, definitely. I
And
will gush about that.
I can imagine there being at least one more part at minimum when we talk
Yes.
about like 2018, 2019 to today in terms of shooters, or maybe even going a little bit further past that, going from like Doom 2016 to today could probably be like its own part.
Definitely. For sure, Josh.
All right, but
We're,
that is going to do it for part 2 of this episode. So who knows how many more we have to go? It may just be like Final Fantasy. It'll just keep going
yes.
and going and going. But thank you everybody for tuning in. It was a lovely sunny day when we started. Now it's rainy and dreary out here. There's some
Yeah,
environmental storytelling for everyone.
exactly. Hey, I'm having the same thing here. So our environments are synced up. Good network code there.
Exactly. Oh yes, Medal of Honor we need to throw in. I'm not sure where Medal of
Oh my
Honor would throw.
gosh. Wow. What year? Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of Medal of Honors though, right?
Oh yeah, that was PlayStation 1, I believe, as well. That
Yeah.
would have been. Ow. Jeez.
Yeah. I'm
Really?
not looking it up yet.
No, I'm old enough. We'll try and throw more. There'll always be like random shooters we'll just throw
That's
in
right.
into part 3. Don't forget about Bulletstorm as well. We have to talk about
Oh my
that.
gosh, yeah, you mentioned the kick and I was trying to you mentioned the
Yeah.
kick in and I was trying to remember Bulletstorm. So
Mhm.
now we gotta have a whole episode on Bulletstorm.
Yeah.
And then of course the like you said, the live service
Mhm.
ones. Yeah, we got a lot coming up still.
Yeah, so next week will be kind of be like what, like late 2000s into mid 2010s will kind of be where we'll be focusing on. But again, we'll break that rule probably at least 8 times over the how many long it's going to be.
We'll get into Luigi's Mansion or something.
Well, Luigi's Mansion is just like Condemned.
It was based off of it.
There we go. There's your fan theory for today's episode. But thank you everybody for tuning in. If you've been watching and enjoying, do the YouTubing, liking, bell ringing, and all that algorithmic stuff.
Yes, exactly. All the links are down below. Join the Discord. Let us know what you want to hear and talk about. Buy Josh's books. And I will be on May 1st. I have a game developer conference. I'll get the links on the next show, so that way there's like a discount code or something, and so you can attend that and watch. And other than that,
oh, and don't forget to check out Josh's games. You'll find links to the store pages down below as well.
Yes, thank you, Josh.
Yeah. And be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to get your name on my lovely new plaque, Hall of Plaque Fame supporters. And we will be back next Saturday around 5:30, depending upon how things go. Josh, again, I hope you have a great week, and I hope you start feeling better as well.
Thank you.
If you're not, next week we'll have to compare medicine next to us.
We're going to do at the beginning of the show, medicine cabinet compare.
Yeah, exactly, because that's what people want to see us talk about. All the old man stuff we take to at least be able to do our shows.
We said game wisdom. Wisdom's in the title, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. So, everyone, have a great rest of your weekend, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where you study the art and science of games.